Hey y'all, so there are three professionals in particular that you should consult when you're starting a nonprofit. I'm going to break down who those professionals are. Let's get into it. Hey y'all, this is Tiffany with Boss on a Budget. I help people start their nonprofits but also raise money for their nonprofits. I wanted to do a quick video today to talk about particular professionals you should have on your team or you should be consulting when you're thinking about starting a nonprofit. I want you to wait to the end of this video as well because I'm going to share my tips about two staff positions in particular that should be the first staff positions you pursue when you want to start paying staff. The first professional you should have on your team or you should be connected to in some way is a lawyer. Now, I often tell people when they're pulling together their board, it's always good to try to get someone with a legal background on your board or who has connections to someone with a legal background. And the thing is this, there are different types of lawyers. So you may need a lawyer to help with your business setup and to make sure that all your paperwork is straight, or to look at your bylaws, or to review your policies for your nonprofit. But later on, you may want to pursue a real estate deal and you want a lawyer to review your contract for your real estate transactions. So it's not necessarily that you need one lawyer and that lawyer is going to take care of all your legal issues, but it's good to be connected to a lawyer so they can tap into their networks as well, so that when you need certain expertise, you can have access to it. So it's always good to have a lawyer friend attached to you, if nothing else, at a basic level, to review your bylaws and to review your policies. Governance is so key when it comes to running a nonprofit and just keeping the IRS out of your life. So it's important that you have certain policies in place, and having a lawyer who can work through that with you or review them to make sure that they adhere to state policy is great. And that's the other pointer I'll give you before I move on to the next, is that make sure you're having a lawyer who practices in your state, especially when it comes to certain policies you need to have in place, like your whistleblower policy or a conflict of interest policy. Your state law may have certain provisions that you need to have in those policies. And if you're not aware of those because the lawyer that you're working with practices in another state, you may be missing on some key things that you should have in place. If you need help figuring out what policies to put in place, how to pull your board together, all that kind of stuff, make sure you check out my board's masterclass. So I recorded a class about 2 to 3 hours where I broke it down from beginning to end, how to recruit board members, how to have good governance, and a part of that masterclass covers the policies you should have in place. So if you're not sure about that, make sure you check out that masterclass so you can be good when it comes to your governance. The second professional that I think is key to have is someone who's good with taxes, an accountant, or a bookkeeper, all of that. So you may not be able to afford an accountant to do your books or a bookkeeper to do your books. Or you may not be making enough money where it doesn't necessarily make sense to have someone do that for you. And when I say your books, I just mean that you're recording the money you bring in and recording the money that goes out. But the reason why I'm saying that you should consult with one, especially early on, is because as a nonprofit, you have to record your expenses a certain way using certain categories. When it comes to your revenue, you have to make sure that you're categorizing it and you're spending it and recording it correctly, especially if there are restrictions on some of the money that you get or certain stipulations attached to the money, like with a grant or something like that. You want to make sure that the system that you have in place to account for all of that and record and track that is in alignment with what the IRS needs from you. So what an accountant can do, or someone experienced with doing nonprofit taxes, is to set up your accounting system so that the categories are correct. So when it's time for you to record transactions, you're recording it the right way and making it easier for you when you have to report this information to the IRS. It's so much easier to just get this out the way in the beginning, have the system in place, instead of having transactions already done and having to go back and, well, I can't compare year to year because I was recording it this way in 2018, but in 21 I'm doing it this way. Just start from the very beginning. Consult with an accountant who is experienced with nonprofit taxes. That's the caveat, y'all. Not all accountants are experienced with nonprofit taxes. So find someone with that experience who can help you track your information the right way and also have the right financial policies in place so that you're handling the money correctly and there's no risk for fraud or embezzlement. So again, that's why I'm suggesting that you consult with a financial person or have someone like that on your board who can help you navigate that space. The third type of professional you should consult with is an insurance professional. So a lot of people don't think about insurance when it comes to their nonprofit. Maybe they think because, well, I'm not necessarily a business, I don't need insurance. I don't know why people think that way. You absolutely are a business. You absolutely have to protect your interest. You have to protect your board members and your staff, and insurance is a way to do that. Now, when you're looking for insurance, typically you'll go through an insurance broker. You usually do not have to pay for that. That's why I'm saying in particular, you need to pay attention to this because you don't necessarily have to pay someone to check out what insurances you need. Now, obviously, to get the insurance, you have to pay money, but at least to consult with someone to figure out when it's time to get insurance and what kinds of insurance to get, that is so key for you to do. You may not realize it, but in order to get certain grants or contracts, you may need a certain level of insurance. Absolutely, if you're working with children, you need a certain kind of insurance. And these are the things that are afterthoughts for a lot of people. So think ahead about what you may need. And I'm not saying that day one when you open your nonprofit and you're not really doing a lot that you need insurance, all the insurance from day one. But that's why you consult with a professional so they can give you advice for when and how much and what types of insurance to get. So I promise to share 2 staff positions in particular that you should think about hiring soon after you transition to paid staff. So the first person you really need to think about beyond the executive director, because I know clearly as founders, a lot of you want to be executive directors, and that's an important position to have in place and to be able to get paid for it. But in addition to that, number one, you need to think about a director of operations, someone who can help manage the work, dealing with your clients, putting policies and procedures in place for the actual work you're doing, interfacing with your participants and people who are using your services or receiving your services. Because here's the thing. As an executive director, you got to be everything to everyone. You got to deal with the programming, operations, you got to deal with the board, you have to deal with fundraising, you have to deal with administrative requirements, networking, partnerships, and it's really difficult to keep all of that together and to hold it down. So one of your positions needs to be someone who can help with operations and helping with executing the programming. Okay. Now this looks different depending on the type of work you're doing and the type of organization you are. For some people, having an administrative assistant or a virtual assistant to handle that is good enough. For some people, it's a project manager to help manage all of the work. For some people, it may be like a case manager or something like that. It's different depending on the type of work you're doing, but you absolutely need someone to help you with programming. The second person, and I want you to hear me out on this, is so key. And before you decide to bring on anyone else, you need to think about having this person. This would be a development person or a fundraising person. This can look many different ways depending on what your fundraising plan shows, depending on the type of fundraising that you're doing. But you need someone whose main responsibility it is to bring in money. Why am I saying that in particular? Because the return on the investment is major. So if someone is solely dedicated to bringing financial resources for your organization, then if you give them the time, the space to do what they need to do, all they're going to do is bring in money. And the more money you bring in, the more you can hire more staff, the more you can do your programming, all of that. So that's important for you to really consider is who can you have in terms of someone fundraising, grant writing, development, whatever it looks like for your organization to help your organization grow. All right, y'all. So those are my thoughts about people you need to consult with when you're starting your nonprofit and when you're thinking about transitioning to staff, the important staff positions you should have in place. If you need help navigating the first year, trying to get yourself solid and together, make sure you check out my nonprofit startup workbook. It helps guide you through the first year of your nonprofit. It helps you think about your budget, your fundraising plan, your strategic plan, and your communications plans. It does go over insurance. It goes over important policies you should have in place. So make sure y'all check that out. It's in the description box below. Also, if you'd like to talk to me, you can visit me at www.bossonabudget.com. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.